These astronauts are about to watch the entire Earth be engulfed in a toxic fog and deal with the reality that they might be the last humans left alive. The year is 2056, and the Earth's atmosphere has almost completely deteriorated. As the poor are left to die, the rich live in specialized air domes which filter out the deteriorated atmosphere. World governments have been replaced by big corporations which have their own private armies for resolving conflicts over resources and territories. Attempts to find refuge in space have all failed. A corporation called Nebra owns the last space station still in orbit named Rubicon, and they use it to conduct research, trying to find a solution to the environmental crisis on Earth. A Nebra soldier named Hannah and an environmental activist and chemist named Gavin are approaching Rubicon in a space shuttle. They are arriving to conduct research on the station. Gavin is anxious because of the delicate and risky nature of space travel. As they approach Rubicon, they contact the scientists on board, Philip and Tracy. Hannah tells them her current coordinates according to the AI Navicon, but Philip and Tracy are reading completely different coordinates on their screens. It appears there is a disconnect in the information, and the shuttle is much closer to Rubicon than they realize. Hannah takes manual control of the shuttle to dock with Rubicon. She swings the shuttle around and barely saves it from crashing into the Rubicon. She manages to successfully dock. As they enter the Rubicon, they are greeted by Philip and Tracy, and while Philip gives them the tour, Hannah curiously observes the green algae floating all over the ship in the walls. Hannah speaks to her sister Knopf back on Earth via video call. Afterward, the ship's crew properly welcomes Hannah and Gavin over a few drinks. They get to meet the doctor, Dimitri, and his son, Danilo, who seems to disapprove of Gavin because Gavin is the son of a rich man who lives in the air domes back on Earth. Just then, Philip arrives and says that he has received word on the laser communication system that a strange fog has formed in some parts of the Earth, and fatalities have occurred because of it. Gavin goes to check the situation on a device that analyzes the Earth's atmosphere, but the device isn't functional. The next day, all the astronauts on the station prepare for a return journey to Earth. Dimitri, Hannah, and Gavin will be staying behind. After everyone leaves, Hannah contacts Nebra. Hannah is actually a Nebra spy sent to investigate the algae system on the ship. Nebra thinks that Dimitri has created a perfectly sustainable closed atmospheric system with the algae, with clean, breathable air being replenished. They believe he is hiding his success. Nebra tells Hannah to go ahead with Project Icarus. She asks them for more time, but they refuse and insist that she get it done in 2 days. Hannah is snooping around the algae lab and opens a computer panel that has the word Icarus written on it. Just then, Dimitri arrives and Hannah closes the panel in time and appears as if she was innocently observing the algae. Dimitri is suspicious of her. They receive an emergency message on the laser comm. It's from Philip and the other astronauts in transit. Philip informs them that they cannot establish any kind of contact with ground control, and they are entering the Earth blind. Hannah tries contacting ground control herself, but it doesn't work. She gets in a suit and goes outside to check whether their communication hardware is still intact. Dimitri speaks to Danilo in the shuttle, who sounds panicked. Outside, Hannah is checking the hardware when she receives a transmission from the astronauts in the shuttles full of screams. They're saying that their shuttle is burning up badly on re-entry and they cannot slow down. With some final loud screams, the transmission cuts off and Hannah turns around to see that a weird brown fog cloud is slowly covering the entire planet. Hannah comes inside and desperately tries contacting ground control, or Nebra, but she receives no answer from anywhere. She gets one final message from her sister explaining that soldiers on the ground have been called in to evacuate people to the bunkers. Meanwhile, Dimitri is distraught, having just heard the final screams of his son, Danilo. Over the next couple of days, Hannah continues to try and contact anyone back on Earth, but to no avail, because the lasers of their communication system cannot penetrate the fog. Meanwhile, Dimitri stays locked up in his room and mourns his son. When Hannah tries to talk to him, he angrily tells her to go away. Gavin keeps trying to get the atmosphere analyzer to work to figure out what this fog is. One day, Gavin wakes up and notices that the analyzer has worked, but what he finds seems to shock him. Gavin walks into the space station's airlock and depressurizes it, trying to commit suicide. Hannah notices this on the CCTV cameras, and she and Dimitri rush to save Gavin. They watch as he squirms from a lack of air, but they cannot repressurize and open the door until the airlock has fully depressurized first. It finally does, and they fill it with air at full speed. They open the door, and they give Gavin CPR and mouth-to-mouth to save him. It works. As Dimitri looks after an unconscious Gavin, he tells Hannah that he knows she is a Nebra spy sent to check up on the algae system. Hannah says that Nebra funds this station and his research, so the algae system is technically theirs, but he angrily disagrees. The next day, Hannah is working when she notices Gavin walking about the ship. Hannah and Dimitri follow him and find him sitting in the communications room. He reveals to them what he learned from the analyzer. The fog covering Earth is completely toxic, and no one can survive a second of breathing it. Everyone on Earth is dead. Gavin has a panic attack and has difficulty breathing. Dimitri gives him some medicine and puts him to bed. They set up an alarm in his room in case he wakes up. Dimitri asks Hannah if she had anyone back on Earth, and she tells him about Knopf. She says it doesn't matter because they'll run out of oxygen and die on this station too. Dimitri says that won't happen, and admits that his algae system is advanced enough to replenish oxygen for them. Hannah works on an old radio wave communicator to try and establish contact with Earth, and Dimitri helps her with it. Unfortunately, it fails to reach anyone, and Hannah is distraught. Gavin wakes up and he seems stable enough to talk now. Hannah asks him what the fog is and where it came from. Gavin says that it is a lethal aerosol and is probably the result of some kind of chain reaction between Earth's pollution and toxins from power plants. He says it's all over because even the air domes on Earth wouldn't be able to filter out this fog. Hannah tells him about the algae system and says they can stay on the space station as long as they need to. But Gavin does not like the idea of living the rest of his life in space. Dimitri says Gavin is free to kill himself, but he will also be killing Dimitri and Hannah because the algae system is only designed to sustain a minimum of 3 people. If there are fewer than 3 breathers on the station, an imbalance is created and the system fails. The next day, Gavin and Hannah discuss that their entire lives were spent doing environmental activism and soldier missions, but looking at Earth now, they realize that none of that means anything anymore. They both wish they had been a bit more carefree and spent time enjoying life. The sweet conversations turns into them making vigorous love. Several weeks pass, and one day, Hannah notices that the algae are turning brown. Dimitri tells her that it is nothing to worry about, but secretly, he takes a sample and runs some tests. Later that night, they are all drinking and playing cards when Dimitri reveals that the reason he hid his algae system from Nebra was because Nebra only wanted to use the system for the air domes of the rich back on Earth. Dimitri says he was okay with that because that would have made him money. But Danilo was an activist like Gavin and wanted to share the benefits of the system with the general public, and hence they hid their creation. They spend the rest of the night getting drunk and dancing. As Hannah recovers from a hangover, she receives a transmission from Earth. She and Gavin answer it and find out that there are 300 people who have survived by entering a safety bunker with its own oxygen supply. However, the supply is starting to run out. The woman from the bunker asks about the algae system, and Hannah wonders how she knows about it. The woman reveals that she and several other people in the bunker have invested in the project. They are all rich CEOs. Hannah and Gavin decide to fly down to Earth with the algae system and save the survivors. They can reach because there is a hole in the fog. That's how they received the transmission in the first place. Dimitri objects to this plan, saying they'll never make it without ground control contact or the AI Navicon, which is also disabled. Gavin says they have a responsibility to try, and Gavin and Dimitri end up having a heated argument. Hannah faints and Dimitri takes a blood sample to see what's wrong with her. Hannah and Gavin discuss that there may be a chance that Knopf might be alive on Earth, since she was one of the soldiers helping people evacuate to the bunkers. They decide to go through with the Earth mission. As they are about to load the algae for the trip, Dimitri shows them that all the algae have turned brown. He reveals this is happening because the algae feed on the nutrients in their urine, and they are very sensitive to hormonal changes. Hannah's urine has changed hormones because she is pregnant. If they make the trip to Earth now, it will be highly dangerous for Hannah's baby. Gavin tries to talk to Hannah about this situation, but Hannah is adamant to go through with the mission and says that she does not want to raise a baby on the space station anyway. The next day, all three get in the shuttle and prepare for the trip, but the shuttle malfunctions and starts heating up. They exit the shuttle because it's heating up enough to explode. Gavin tries to fix the shuttle manually, but Hannah detaches it from the space station to save their lives. The shuttle explodes in space. Gavin is upset with Hannah for doing this, as she has ruined the only chance for the Earth people. Gavin learns about Icarus from the bunker people and asks Hannah what it is. Hannah says that the entire algae lab can be detached and sent down to Earth. Gavin is upset that Hannah didn't tell him about this option, but Hannah says it can't work. The lab has no steering power and no way to seat passengers. However, Gavin, being the activist he is, says they have to try this for the people on Earth. It is their responsibility. While walking around the ship, Hannah learns that it was Dimitri who shut down the cooling system of the shuttle and caused the malfunction. She calls him out on it and says they will be using Icarus to get to Earth now. Dimitri says that the people she is trying to rescue don't care about her. He says that the reason they wanted the algae system so urgently was probably because they knew the fog was coming. They knew, and they didn't tell anyone because they didn't want to share their bunkers. Hannah talks to the bunker survivors and learns that they didn't allow soldiers to enter the bunkers. This enrages Hannah, who now knows that her sister probably didn't survive either. Gavin tries to convince her to still go through with the mission because there are innocent children in those bunkers as well, but Hannah refuses. Gavin tries to go through with the mission regardless. He ties up Dimitri and starts loading the algae. Hannah arrives and he lets her in the room. He says he knows she is a good person and she won't try to stop him. It seems for a minute that Hannah is going to comply, but she gets up and destroys the Icarus mainframe. Gavin is distraught. Over the next few days, Gavin stays frustrated in his room. One day, Hannah finds Gavin's body in the depressurized airlock once again, and this time, she failed to save him. They give Gavin a funeral, and Hannah tells Dimitri that this was Gavin's way of forcing his will on them. Now that they need 3 breathers on the ship, they have to go down to Earth and rescue the survivors. Dimitri is horrified, and he reveals that the 3 breathers thing was a lie he made up back then to stop Gavin from trying to commit suicide again. They are both distraught. Several years pass, and Hannah now has a daughter named Knopf, after Hannah's sister. Knopf is playing around the ship when she finds the radio communicator. She comes in contact with some kids on Earth who reveal to her that they are the children of survivors looking for other survivors now that the Earth's atmosphere is finally cleared up. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this.